Welcome to the deep dive. This time, we're heading to Abidjan, the heart of Côte d'Ivoire. It's even got this nickname, the Paris of West Africa. But we're not just talking about cafes and croissants. You've got a whole stack of articles on Abidjan, especially how it's attracting people from all over Africa. So think of us as your travel guides, bringing back the best insights.
What I find fascinating is that Abidjan is this blend, like a giant cultural melting pot of over 60 ethnicities. And you can really feel it in the food, the music, the whole vibe.
Okay, now that's what I'm talking about. I was looking at the food earlier, and now I want plantains.
Not just any plantains. We're talking about dishes like futu, this hearty plantain or yam dough that's like a staple there, and achieke, which is made from fermented cassava.
Hold on, fermented. Like kimchi, but with plantains.
Exactly. Fermented foods are huge in Ivorian cuisine. It's taking something so simple and elevating it, kind of like Abidjan itself when you think about it. We've got all this info on this huge economic boom happening there. It's become the place to be in Africa for opportunity, especially for other Africans.
Okay, but why there? What makes Abidjan different?
A lot of it goes back to when President Ouattara took office in 2011. Since then, they've been attracting tons of multinational companies, especially in fields like finance and telecom. You name the industry, they're probably setting up shop in Abidjan.
So Abidjan's riding the wave of all these global booms.
But more like they're mastering it. And the thing is, it's not just any jobs, it's those high-skill, high-paying jobs that people dream of. It's no wonder everyone's trying to get a piece of the Abidjan action.
Okay, but now my question is, how expensive is it to actually live there?
Well, that's the thing. It is the most expensive city in Côte d'Ivoire, but it's actually still pretty affordable compared to other big African cities. Imagine living comfortably on, say, $1,500 to $2,500 a month.
That's less than my rent in some cities I won't name.
Yeah.
But what about the vibe? The articles mention that Ivorians are known for being super welcoming, but is that true, or is that just something they tell tourists?
That's what's so cool about Abidjan. It's got this modern ambition, but at the same time, it's got these deep traditions. And that warmth you're talking about, it's real. Ivorians even have this saying, akwaba, which means welcome, and it's more than just a word, it's a way of life.
Now, I do want to book a flight, but I have to ask, it can't be all sunshine and good food, right?
You're right. There's always two sides to every story. Some sources mention that there can be a bit of culture shock, especially for people who are new to the city. Things work differently in Abidjan, like navigating the healthcare system, for example, or even just figuring out how to get around. It can definitely be a learning curve.
That lost in translation feeling you get in a new place.
Exactly. And then there's the rainy season. Abidjan's climate is pretty great overall, but when it rains, it pours. And, even with all the improvements they've made to their infrastructure, traffic in Abidjan can still be a bit of a challenge.
So pack an umbrella, a good book, and maybe a meditation app for those traffic jams.
Exactly. It's all about balance.
Right.
What about you? What really stood out to you as you were going through everything?
I'm really struck by this juxtaposition we keep seeing between tradition and modernity. We've talked about the food and this economic boom, but it seems like this contrast is everywhere in Abidjan. You see it in those modern skyscrapers against a backdrop of traditional markets, or in that blend of traditional and contemporary art.
You hit the nail on the head. That's what's so captivating about Abidjan. It's a city that's evolving, finding its own rhythm in this mix of old and new.
It's almost like they're writing their own rule book, combining Ivorian heritage with a more global outlook.
Right. Think about their architecture, for example. You've got these modern skyscrapers sharing the skyline with colorful open-air markets, and each space has this unique energy.
That energy, that vibe you're talking about, that's what I'm most curious about. What's it actually like to be in Abidjan?
Picture this. Vibrant colors, the scent of spices mixed with that sea breeze, people talking and laughing in French and different African languages.
Hold on, so how important is French there? Asking for a friend who only knows a few phrases.
It's the official language, so while you will hear a mix of languages, knowing a little French will make things easier, and it shows you're making an effort, which goes a long way.
Good to know.
Mm.
But back to those streets. You're really painting a picture here.
It's this blend, right? 1 minute you're browsing through a traditional market, the air is filled with spices, food, everything. Then you turn a corner and suddenly you're on this bustling street with modern cafes and boutiques.
It's like that feeling of being caught between two worlds, but in a good way.
And it's not just what you see or hear, it's the pace of life too. Things move a little differently in Abidjan.
Differently how? Give me an example.
Think island time, but in a big, bustling city. Everything's a little more relaxed, a little more go with the flow. It's not that things don't get done. It's more about taking the time to connect with people, to enjoy the moment.
Okay, now you're speaking my language.
Yeah.
I'm all for slowing down and embracing the rhythm of a new place. But what about the practical things? We talked about the challenges of navigating a new city, but let's get specific. Say someone's thinking about actually packing their bags and going to Abidjan. What are some things they should know about everyday life?
Transportation is a big one. Taxis and buses are everywhere, but be prepared for traffic, especially during rush hour.
So Abidjan traffic is legendary.
Let's just say it's an experience. You'll see people hopping on woro-woros.
Woro? Okay, you have to explain this. What in the world is a woro-woro?
Imagine a shared taxi, but a little more adventurous. They're chaotic and efficient at the same time. It's a whole system.
Okay, we'll have to save that story for another time. What about safety? That's always a top priority when you're in a new city, especially somewhere completely different from what you're used to.
Like any big city, common sense goes a long way. Be aware of your surroundings. Don't go flashing around expensive jewelry, that sort of thing. Try not to walk alone late at night, especially in areas you don't know or that aren't well lit. Just be smart and take precautions, but that's true wherever you go.
That's true. But from what I read, it sounds like Abidjan's been working on improving safety and security, especially in recent years, right?
Definitely. They've increased the police presence, especially around tourist areas and business districts, but like any city, things are always changing.
Good to know. Okay, so we've covered transportation and safety. What about healthcare? You mentioned earlier that it might take some getting used to.
It's kind of a mixed bag. They have public and private healthcare. Private clinics are more modern, but they're expensive.
So good health insurance is a must, even if you're just visiting?
100%. Better safe than sorry. Now, before we get too bogged down in the practical stuff, let's move on to something a little more fun, leisure and entertainment. What does Abidjan have to offer for people looking to unwind after they've spent the day exploring?
You know, even for a city that's all about hustle and progress, they sure know how to relax. Speaking of, let's talk food. I'm starving.
You're in luck, because it's time for Abidjan's culinary scene. Remember those staple dishes we mentioned earlier, atiake and futu?
How could I forget? You had me at fermented plantain.
Okay, so picture this. Little grains of cassava fermented until they're perfect with this tangy, almost sour flavor. That's atiake. And they often serve it with grilled chicken or fish. It's all about texture.
Okay, my mouth is officially watering. It's amazing how they can take something as simple as cassava and through this fermentation process, transform it into something so unique.
Exactly. And then there's futu, which is this like dense, doughy, delicious thing made from pounded plantains or yams. Pure comfort food. They eat it with rich sauces and stews.
Okay, sauces. You have to elaborate on that. What kind of sauces are we talking about?
Get ready for a flavor explosion. One you have to try is sauce green. It's this rich palm nut sauce. Imagine a creamy satay, but with this nuttiness from the palm nuts. And they simmer it with fish or meat and all these spices.
Okay, that's it. I'm booking my flight.
Oh, but there's more. They also have sauce claire, which is tomato-based, so a little lighter than sauce grain, but just as good. It's fresh, with onions and peppers and herbs and spices.
So they've got this balance between those richer flavors and something lighter and fresher.
Exactly. And it's not just about restaurants either. Abidjan has a huge street food scene.
Okay, you had me at street food. Tell me more. What should we try?
Picture yourself walking through a busy market, smelling all the spices, and then you see them. A loco, these perfectly ripe plantains, fried until they're golden brown. Sweet, savory, crispy. The ideal street food.
I love that. Simple, delicious, perfect for a quick bite. But what about if you want something a bit more filling?
Oh, then you have to try poisson brisé, grilled fish. It's seasoned perfectly, and you can smell that smoky aroma from a mile away.
I can almost smell it now. It's amazing how certain smells can take you right back to a specific place. Speaking of sensory experiences, what about drinks? What do they drink in Abidjan?
Well, for something refreshing, try bissap. It's this hibiscus tea, tart, and a little sweet. Plus, it's good for you. Lots of antioxidants.
I love hibiscus tea. So good, especially on a hot day.
Or, if you're feeling brave, try ginger juice. It's exactly what it sounds like, juice from fresh ginger. Spicy and refreshing. And lots of locals will tell you about all the health benefits.
I love those spicy flavors. It sounds like Ivorian cuisine really reflects the country, bold flavors, the freshest ingredients, and a lot of heart.
100%. It's not just about the food itself either, but about sharing it. Eating together is really important to them. Speaking of which, we should talk about another aspect of Ivorian culture, religion. We've mentioned the importance of community and tradition, but what about the role of religion? What's that like in Abidjan?
It's true. If you understand a city's religious landscape, it tells you a lot about what they value. What did we learn?
Abidjan is this fascinating mix of religions. Islam and Christianity are the main ones for sure. But then you've also got traditional African religions. It adds a whole other layer to things.
It's like this amazing blend of religious diversity, but are they totally separate, or is there some overlap?
It's actually pretty common to see elements of traditional African beliefs blended with both Islam and Christianity. They've created their own mix of spiritual practices.
Can you give us an example? How does that actually work?
Well, take the reverence for ancestors, for instance. That's central to a lot of traditional African religions. But even those who identify as Muslim or Christian might pour libations or offer food to honor their ancestors. It blends right in.
I love that. It's like honoring their history, their past, even as they embrace these new beliefs. Are there any religious places that we should know about? Places that maybe reflect this fusion?
Abidjan has tons of religious landmarks. One is the St. Paul's Cathedral. The architecture is really modern, and it's become a symbol of Catholicism in the city.
It's amazing how much architecture can express about faith.
Totally. And then on the other side, you have the Abidjan Grand Mosque. It's got these huge minarets and incredible details. It's where the Muslim community gathers, and it shows just how much architectural grandeur there is in Abidjan.
So you've got these grand structures for Catholicism and Islam, but what about the traditional African religions? Where do they fit in?
Well, you won't find a big cathedral or mosque specifically for traditional African religions, but their presence is everywhere, woven into their daily lives, those rituals and ceremonies that have been passed down for generations.
It's about keeping those traditions alive, even in the 21st century. It really shows that faith in Abidjan goes way beyond any one building. It's at the core of their identity. Now let's switch gears a little bit. Where can you go to relax after a long day of visiting mosques, cathedrals, and traditional rituals? I've heard Abidjan has a pretty awesome nightlife.
Oh yeah, Abidjan's nightlife. Get ready to dance all night. The city truly comes alive after dark.
So what's so special about it? What makes it different?
It's about letting loose, living in the moment, connecting with people. Music and dancing are everything.
Sounds like the perfect way to unwind after a long day.
Right. And there's something for everyone. You've got open-air marquee where you can enjoy grilled food and local beers under the stars, and then these really trendy nightclubs that play the latest Afrobeat hits.
Okay, so whether you're looking for something low-key or want to dance all night, Abidjan has you covered. You mentioned music, and I know from our research that there's a specific sound to Abidjan. What kind of music should people be listening to when they're there?
Get ready to move those feet because coupé décalé is everywhere in Abidjan's nightlife. Imagine really fast, catchy beats, melodies you can't get out of your head, and lyrics that are sometimes funny and sometimes about what's going on in the world.
It sounds so unique. Is there anything else that defines their music scene?
Definitely check out Zouglou, another genre from Côte d'Ivoire. It started in the 1990s, and it's known for these upbeat rhythms. But what makes it special are the lyrics. They often talk about life in Abidjan, like what's going on every day.
It's like musical commentary, but you can dance to it.
Exactly. You can have a good time, but still be aware of what's going on around you.
It sounds like a window into Abidjan's soul, their energy, their challenges, everything. Speaking of identity, what about fashion? We skimmed over it earlier, but what are we talking about here? What makes Abidjan's fashion scene unique?
Oh, get ready for a feast for your eyes because fashion in Abidjan is all about color, creativity, and attitude.
I'm here for it. What are we going to see on those streets?
One thing you'll notice right away is how much they love African prints and textiles. Bold Ankara designs, intricate kente cloth patterns, they work them into everything. Traditional outfits, modern outfits, it's like this amazing mix of their heritage and what's hot right now.
I love that. Wearing their heritage.
Uh-huh.
It's a statement.
Exactly. And it's not just the prints themselves, it's how they style them. They're masters at mixing and matching prints, textures, and silhouettes, creating these looks that you won't see anywhere else.
Like they're rewriting the fashion rule book. But let's be honest, that seems to be Abidjan's thing, right? taking those rules, tossing them out, and creating something totally new.
Exactly. And it's not limited to some fancy runway either. You see this creativity everywhere, on the streets, in the markets. It's about showing who you are, being bold, and not being afraid to try new things.
Like they're saying, this is me, this is my story, and they're expressing it through their clothes. I love it. So we've got this incredible food scene, a nightlife that's all about those unique rhythms, and a fashion sense that's all about making a statement.
Abidjan really has it all. We've just scratched the surface here. But it's time for us to take a short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back to continue our adventure.
Honestly, learning about a place like this makes me feel like I'm already there. All this talk about Abidjan, the energy, the food, the music. I'm ready to pack my bags.
And we're just getting started. Remember how we were talking about Abidjan being a city of contrasts? Well, now we're diving into the heart of it all, uncovering those little gems that make Abidjan so special.
Okay, I need those insider tips. Where should we start?
Let's go straight to Cocody. It's gotten this nickname, the Beverly Hills of Abidjan, but it's not all about fancy shops and restaurants. Cocody's got this cool mix of upscale everything, but then you've also got this vibrant street life, these markets bursting with color.
So it's where chic meets, well, not so chic. In a good way, of course.
Exactly. You could be checking out designer labels one minute, and the next you're bargaining for a hand-woven basket.
That's the Abidjan blend I'm picking up on. Any Cocody must-sees.
If you're into art and history, and I mean, who isn't, you have to visit the Musée des Civilisations de Côte d'Ivoire. It's like a crash course on everything that makes Côte d'Ivoire what it is. Traditions, art, history.
It's like stepping back in time, right?
Exactly. Now let's switch gears completely and head across the lagoon to Treichville. If Cocody is the sophisticated older sister, Treichville is the adventurous younger sibling.
Oh, I like this younger sibling already.
Treichville is where you go to really get a feel for Abidjan. It's a little rough around the edges, maybe a little chaotic, but so full of life. Think bustling markets, vendors everywhere, the smell of spices.
Okay, now that's what I'm talking about. Sensory overload in the best way.
Then you'll love the Marché de Treichville. It's like the heart of Treichville. You can find anything and everything there. Fabrics, jewelry, even just those everyday things that give you a feel for what life is really like.
It's a shopper's paradise and a cultural experience.
Exactly. Just remember, haggling is expected. Don't be shy. It's part of the experience.
Challenge accepted. I'm imagining this bustling market, but you mentioned something about colonial architecture. That seems like an interesting contrast.
Oh, you're thinking of the Quartier France. It's this little area in Treichville where it feels like time has stopped. You'll find these gorgeous kind of rundown colonial buildings. They have so many stories to tell.
It's amazing how one neighborhood can have so much going on. The market, these echoes of history. Speaking of stories, we have to talk about Abidjan's literary scene. You know I'm a bookworm, and I love authors who can really capture the soul of a place.
Abidjan's got plenty of them. And the literary scene is as diverse as the city itself. They're writing about everything from what it's like to live in Côte d'Ivoire, the impact of colonialism, even the small joys of daily life there.
If we want a taste of Abidjan's literary voice, who should we read?
Amadou Kourouma is a legend, not just in Côte d'Ivoire, but across the entire continent. His books often deal with colonialism, the fight for independence, even that search for who you are in a world that's always changing.
Those universal themes are what make literature so powerful. Are there any other Ivorian authors we should check out?
Definitely. If you want a different perspective, check out Margarita Bouet. She's a graphic novelist, and her work is incredible at capturing the energy of everyday life in Abidjan.
Oh, I love that. Graphic novels are such a unique way to experience a story. The words, the visuals, they combine to make something really special.
Right. And her stories offer this glimpse into the heart of Abidjan. The people, their everyday experiences, everything.
It's like a literary adventure. We've been talking about capturing the essence of a place, and it makes me think about music. We talked about Abidjan's nightlife, but what about the roots of their music? What are the traditional instruments, the sounds that shape their musical landscape?
Get ready to be transported. Ivorian music is built on centuries of tradition, and a lot of it starts with the djembe.
The goblet-shaped drum. I've always loved the djembe. It's just pure energy.
You can feel it, can't you? It's more than just an instrument. It's a part of so many ceremonies, celebrations. It connects them to their ancestors.
Music as a bridge between the past and the present.
Exactly. Now, imagine a softer sound, a little more melodic. That's the balafon. It's this wooden xylophone that uses gourds to make the sound resonate. They use it when they're telling stories.
It sounds beautiful.
And you know what's amazing? They haven't forgotten about those traditional instruments. They've incorporated them into their modern music.
So you'll hear the djembe and the balafon alongside contemporary beats.
100%. It's that mix of old and new that we keep talking about, just like Abidjan itself.
Yeah.
It shows how music can connect generations.
You know, thinking back on our whole deep dive into Abidjan, that theme keeps coming up, this balance between tradition and modernity. It's like they've found a way to hold on to their heritage and still move forward.
It's everywhere. The food, the music, the architecture, even in the way they approach things like business and progress. They haven't chosen one or the other. They've found a way for both to work.
Like they're teaching us that we can progress without forgetting where we came from.
It's a good lesson. Abidjan might be called the Paris of West Africa, but this city is doing its own thing, paving its own way.
So, to everyone listening, if you want a city that will surprise you, challenge you, and leave you wanting more, Abidjan should be at the top of your list. It's time to discover the magic of Abidjan. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring.